Uh, Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if you would join me, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Josh, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Rachel Arizmendi. Don Cameron.
Here.
Janae DaCosta.
Present.
Mike Allen.
Here.
Eric Holst. Wendy Humison.
Here.
Bryce Lumberg.
Here.
Julia Jackson. David Mancera.
Here.
Michelle Pissarro. She is online. She may be a guest.
Can you move her into the
There she is.
meeting?
Yes.
She was right below that, right?
Michelle Pissarro, are you present?
I'm here. Sorry about that.
No problem. Joya Robinson. Frank Salazar. Joy Sterling.
Here.
Tricia Stock. Waiting, I believe she might be online. We're having technical difficulties with Tricia. Chris Valdez. Mr. President, we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Josh. We have the minutes to approve from the December 5th meeting. Those were sent out. We need a motion to approve.
Troy made the motion. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, first and a second. Any discussion or corrections? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, Josh. Secretary Ross, we are going to move for the departmental update.
It's been the holidays. You want me to remember what happened earlier this month? No, our biggest news is our continued efforts and huge efforts on the highly pathogenic avian influenza. It's one of the larger outbreaks that Dr. Jones has led, and she has a very long and distinguished career. So it's something that's having a huge impact on our poultry sector and to the families in the poultry business, in particular in the North Coast, where there's many small and mid-sized poultry producers. But that's not isolated to the North Coast. We're in about 7 different counties now. As many of you know from the weekly updates that we're providing, our variety of fruit fly issues have not necessarily expanded at the rate that they were. We are doing a very good job with tremendous cooperation from our colleagues at the federal level with USDA APHIS, and most importantly with all of our county ag commissioners, of deploying staff, of bringing on additional staff, of doing all that we possibly can. We have had to expand the quarantine, which is on direction from APHIS, and we are taking all of the measures. There have been a couple of points where we've had to do like a really immense fruit stripping, which is one of the ways of eliminating the potential of infested fruit and stopping the movement of it. We're working with industry on pre-quarantine treatments to allow for movement where it is possible. But the most important thing for us to do right now is continue to do exactly what the protocols call for, to demonstrate that we are doing every step that is available to us to prevent the spread and to eradicate this pest. And I'm confident that we'll be able to do so. We're working very closely with industry on some of the findings in other countries of potential additional tools. At this point, the protocols are very well set in place, and all of those would have to go through APHIS. Also, since our last board meeting, we were notified of significant additional funding from USDA that will go to support the federal efforts as well as reimbursements to the state, and making sure that ag commissioners and our state staff have the resources that they need. I cannot say enough good things about the tremendous cooperation, close collaboration and communication that's taking place. We're just hoping there'd be some colder weather in Southern California. Haven't given up on that one yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Yeah, we hope we do get some cold weather so we can get at least good suppression. Glenda, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think the secretary forgot to mention the extremely valuable work they did at the Rose Parade, certifying California-grown status on the floats. I, for one, thought it was fantastic.
Thanks, Glenda. We're still suffering from interruptions in the supply chain, so there weren't as many floats this year that met that 85% threshold. But what is unique and makes it very special is we were able to recognize the Cal Poly universities for 75 years of student-built floats. That's happening on 2 different campuses, 3 different schools at each campus. What they learn about teamwork, collaboration, innovation, responding to every kind of variable that can be thrown at you is a true demonstration of learn by doing. So it was a great day. Thanks, Glenda.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was pretty remarkable. Bryce, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report, and that is impressive to work with the Rose Parade. Nicely done. Secretary Ross, on the avian influenza, what is the kind of number of birds and farms, or number of farms and number of birds that are that have been lost? Do you have?
The number nationally is very, very large. I don't have the most current number for California, but I will get that by the end of the meeting.
Oh, thanks. And it's no trouble, Secretary Ross, if just, you know, I'd heard it, you know, I guess I missed the December meeting, and I'm sorry for that, but that it actually, you know, came to California. At one point, I thought it was in, maybe we would miss it here, and that the impact of the this year's avian flu wasn't as big as last year's, but from your perspective, it's as big, and just maybe later. Last year, it seemed to have such a huge impact on the turkeys before Thanksgiving,
Right.
but now
Right.
it's just general birds are okay.
And as you know, Bryce, for a lot of small operations, when it's the entire flock, that's a double whammy of being able to, you get the bird itself is reimbursable, but not the lost business or the time that you're down because of the sanitation requirements. But unfortunately, this has been lingering in the wildlife population, which is what was the introduction for us again this year. So I'll do my best to get those numbers that are the most current numbers that we have by the end of this meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Or just I can catch you on that later. Don't push your staff to get that at this time of day. And the been attending a few of your Friday meetings, Secretary Ross, on the invasive species, and that's just been very impressive. The work that you're doing. I'm glad to hear you're feeling confident. It is is it significantly larger, and I mean, we've always in California been able to get a handle on the invasive fly,
Yes.
and I'm glad to hear you're confident on this one. But this one's bigger and more extensive and different flies than we've had before, and so it's a bigger challenge than we ever had. So-
It's a tremendous challenge, partly because of exactly what you said. It's the numbers of flies, but it's also the variability of the species of flies. And because of our terrific lab and our diagnostics capabilities, we know that these are new species introductions and new gene aspects of it. So it's not like a lingering infestation at all. I want to make that very clear. These are new introductions. And we know that changing climate allows for, that reproduction cycle to be accelerated with multiple reproductions that normally might not happen. But it's for this year, what is highly unusual is to have two species, one that's never been found in this hemisphere and one that's only been introduced a couple of times in this hemisphere. So it's for me, I think this is a very real and tangible evidence of continued challenges for us with climate change. And of course, we also know after 2 years of limited travel and tourism, and then the cargo issues that we've had, we're like everything that might have happened 2 years ago or a year ago. See, and this is Karen Ross, not the scientist speaking, but we do know that there was such limited traffic compared to normal, and then we've had such a huge bump up. We also know that shopping channels and ways of doing commerce have changed dramatically. And that's another potential pathway, which is being analyzed with the project that we have currently with UC and the CSU system to really identify changes in high-risk pathways to make sure that we're closing those wherever we possibly can.
Thank you, Secretary Ross.
Any, excuse me, any other questions for the Secretary before we get to our first presentation today? All right. Thank you, Secretary. Excellent report as usual. I've had a lot of calls over the last month concerning pesticide notification and the process in California. And so what we thought we'd do today was invite Director Henderson and her staff to really just show us an example of what pesticide notification in California would tend to look like. I'm not here to explain that. We have an expert with us. So today we have Director Julie Henderson, Ken Everett, Sam Silva, Leah Bailey with us to help put the presentation and together for us. So I'd like to thank Director Henderson and the DPR team for being here today for discussion on the proposed statewide notification system design. As a board, we understand that since DPR is in a rulemaking process, we are unable to discuss or question aspects of the proposed regulation for statewide notification with the DPR staff, but really do appreciate the opportunity to hear from information on the statewide notification design. So I will turn it over to you, Julie, and your staff, and look forward to your presentation. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Cameron, for having us here today. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with all of you where we are. It's been a process of over 2 years in developing the system, so we're really happy to be able to share where we are today. And I guess just to start out, want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. There's a lot of interest in better understanding what pesticides are used around California. As I think many of you know, we have a really strong regulatory system in place in California that's designed to provide for the safe use of pesticides to both support agriculture as well as to protect people and the environment as part of that use. And what this system is designed to do is really to provide transparent access to information about pesticide use. And as I think you'll see as we get into the demo a little bit later, part of what we're doing is with this system is providing context and information about the regulatory system that is in place that's designed to provide that protection. So we'll go ahead and move into the next slide. And just to reiterate what Chair Cameron noted, that we are in the midst of a rulemaking process right now. So our presentation is limited to talking about and demonstrating what our proposed system design looks like and how it functions. It is a web-based platform that's designed to provide information in advance of the application of restricted material pesticides. And I'll just pause on that note just to emphasize that this is really designed to provide information about that category of pesticides. And that's a category for which there is advance notice provided currently about the application. And so that's part of the reason why we focused on that category to be providing information about. And then finally, the spray days, that's the name of the proposed system, is not part of the regulatory requirement, but what we're going to show you today is that system design that will be what we will we're proposing to launch statewide. So just to note that we have separately proposed regulations regarding the statewide notification of restricted material use, and public comments that are submitted on any item covered at today's meeting should be directed to the Department of Food and Agriculture Board, and instructions on how to submit public comments on our proposed regulatory action are found in the Notice of Proposed Regulatory Action, which is posted on the DPR website at the link noted above. And we will respond to comments after the public comment period closes on January 12th. Next slide. So what is our notification system? So as I mentioned, there has been a lot of community interest in accessing information about pesticide use. And, you know, I think just in the context of the overall regulatory system that we have in place that's designed to protect people and the environment, there are accidents that happen from time to time, and we know that there are risks associated with certain pesticides. And I think all of that raises interest among the public about having a better understanding of what pesticides are used. And so that's really the purpose of the system, is to provide that public access to information about use. We have really paid very close attention in the development of the system to ensuring that agriculture operations can continue as they currently operate and function, and that the restricted material permitting system is able to continue to operate and function in the way it's designed to. We fully recognize that using pest management tools, it's a very time-sensitive practice, and that we did our best to maintain the integrity of the current restricted material permitting process to be able to keep those the timelines that are currently in place functioning. And so as kind of referencing, we built this proposed system on the current restricted material permitting process to be able to provide the public with transparent and equitable access to information before the restricted material applications take place. Next slide. As part of the development of this process, which has been underway since 2021, public engagement has been a really important focus for us at the department. We want to make sure that the system is effective and that it also is enabled, that we can continue to have the current restricted material permit process continue to function as it does today. And so in 2021 and 2022, we hosted 4 focus groups, as well as 8 public webinars and workshops to collect feedback and inform our system design and development. In 2022, we partnered with county agricultural commissioners to conduct 4 different pilot projects in Riverside, Santa Cruz, Stanislaus, and Ventura counties. And in 2023, we worked with the UC Davis Center for Regional Change for them to conduct an independent evaluation of the pilot project's functionality. So they were actually working with us throughout the course of the pilot projects in Riverside, Santa Cruz, Stanislaus, and Ventura counties, and were able to conduct that independent evaluation of the pilot's functionality. And I'll say that we got a lot of very helpful information from the pilot projects as well as from the evaluation. And then starting in 2022, and it's continuing, we initiated the state-required information technology oversight and review process, as well as internal development to design the technology necessary to support the statewide rollout. And Sam will get into that as part of the presentation, but that's been an important part of our development as we've been going through this process. So next slide. So currently where we are is in the process of conducting a beta test of the system design that Sam and Ken and Leah will walk you through. The beta test is happening in Tulare County, and want to just recognize and appreciate Commissioner Tom Tucker in Tulare County for working with us on this beta test. It's a small group test of about 150 participants, both community members, growers, PCAs, and others who are providing direct input and feedback back to us as part of this beta test on the functionality and usability of the system. And I'll just note that this system design is really a product of the objective of being able to provide public information and access to pesticide use on restricted material pesticides, but also to be able to keep the system up and running and to really be able to provide this information in a way that's usable and functional. And so we'll walk you through a demonstration of what that system design in the beta test format looks like today. And so with that, I will turn it over to Ken and Sam and Leah.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. Sam Silva with DPR. I'm the Chief Information Officer and oversee IT. So I'll be walking you through our draft or beta system of spray days. As Julie mentioned, this is really a result of a lot of great feedback that we've received to really build out a simple system that does two primary functions. That is to be able to sign up for a notification of those intended restricted material pesticide applications, or see a map of those upcoming intended applications. Before I jump into those things, I do want to just navigate quickly through the homepage because there are a couple call outs here. You can enter any California address, and that will take you to the rough location of that address. I will show you, it's a grid, a 1 by 1 square mile grid with a pin in that grid. But below that, I want to also share just various components as mentioned: the map, the sign up process to receive notifications, an FAQ, a community health page of really to learn about exposure to pesticides and how people can take action for that. If people are concerned about illegal or unsafe use, there are resources. This actually goes directly to our website, to those resources. And lastly, we thought it was very important to provide a video and context to our robust regulatory process and our robust registration process. So this actually shows a video of our registration process and how pesticide products are registered to ensure the safety and proper use in California.
I'd like to add to that a little bit, Sam. Just so everybody's aware, when we were doing the various focus groups and the piloting and everything else, it was very apparent that people didn't understand the enforcement program or what CDPR does or what the commission was doing. So that was a huge education element that we needed to focus on. And this is the first attempt at trying to get some of that education out there. There will be more in the future, but this is the first one. And so I just want to make everybody aware of that. Of all that we discovered in there, educating the public is still extremely important, and that is something that we're trying to do with this system as well.
No, thank you, Ken. And with that, I will just demo the address function. So this is in Tulare County. Again, thank you, Tulare County, for allowing us to test within that county. And it brings up this address, and I will go right to the map. And again, it shows this grid system. So this is leveraging a current standard that all of the notice of intent or the current process that allows us to receive this data in that 1-by-1 grid format. So with that, I will zoom out just so you can see a broader view. Since this is a statewide system, all counties would be clickable. In this instance, only Tulare County is clickable because that's the only area we're currently piloting or beta testing the system. And with that, you can see a small number 18. That means there are 18 intended restricted material applications coming up. So if I zoom in on this map, I can now see where they are specifically. And I continue zooming in, and here are a couple, this is probably a fairly large agricultural area, and I can click on that number and I can see the two intended applications that are coming up. And to point out specifics of what is planned to be included is the product name, the active ingredients, the application method, the treated amount in acreage, as well as the EPA registration number.
I will
It's-
also.
Oh, go
add
ahead,
this
Kim.
Real quick is that the notification or the NOI information we receive is what is currently required. So 24 hours for most of your restricted materials, 48 hours for the actual for fumigation applications. So that's we're maintaining the regulatory process that we currently have in place at this time. And so that's the information that will be displayed. I will also tell you that that information will be available online for 4 days after the proposed start date of the application. That is typical for our regulatory requirements, because the grower can actually start that application 4 days after the start of the NOI. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that information will be posted after that period of time.
And so jumping off the map, so as you
Sam?
can, oh yes,
Before you jump, can you go back to the information included? The one thing I do want to highlight, and Julie mentioned this, is just our desire to use this system to also communicate how pesticides are currently regulated and provide information. And so part of what we're looking at and collecting through the beta test is also information on where people need more clarity on what is provided, where they need more context. If you hover over the little I in front of product name, for example, it pops up what this word means. And so we're really looking at how to provide that additional context throughout this platform.
yes, and good point, Leah. While you're bringing that up, I'll jump over to the information section just to essentially going into more detail of what Leah just mentioned. So not only is what this system does, but what are active ingredients? What is an EPA registration number? And basically everything around this NOI, notice of intent process to submit paperwork to allow for these upcoming intended applications. And again, very robust, it's searchable, and we've been growing this out as we receive feedback. And jumping to the sign-up process, this was the original intent of the system to be a statewide notification. And this is where someone could do that. They would enter their address and sign up either through, I'm already signed in, so my number is listed there, but you can sign up for email or phone, and it's also available in English or Spanish. And then you sign up, and you can sign up currently for 10 addresses. Also worth noting that the site, as well as all notifications, will be available in English and Spanish at launch. We are looking into other languages, but currently our goal is to launch in both English and Spanish. Lastly, I do want to cover the community health page, which again just provides more context to if people are concerned about exposure, or if they are exposed, some resources to take. For example, when you should call 911 versus a more generic line. And with that, I'll jump back to the home page
Sam, can you go back to the product? One of the questions we received was the hyperlink for the product name. Can you go back and show-
Yes, yes.
I will answer the other question about the planned address. No, we're not providing that information. We're only providing township and range information. That's essentially the 1 mile squares that you're seeing in this map right there.
And I'm glad you brought this up, Ken. This, our product information is clickable, and that links directly to our label database, where someone could quickly find more information about this product. And this is already publicly available via our website. Ken, were there any other questions?
No, that is it at this time.
Before I hand it back to you, Julie, I did want to say, first of all, hello, everyone. Leah Bailey. I'm the Director of Communications at DPR. And throughout the site, as I mentioned earlier, we have information and videos about how pesticides are regulated in California, and hoping to provide more context to the information that is included on this website. We're also planning broader outreach as we look towards implementation on how we talk about what this tool provides, and the information that people can access on this site, including linking out to more information about DPR's role in pesticide regulation.
With that, I'll give it back to Julie.
Thanks, Sam. Leah, do you want to? Yeah, great. Thank you. So just wanted to share some next steps. As we mentioned earlier, we noticed the statewide notification system regulation on November 3rd of last year. And we've conducted 3 different public hearings. 2 were in person and 1 virtual in December of last year. And we will be accepting public comments through January 12th. We are also, as I mentioned earlier, hosting the beta test in Tulare County through the end of January, and are also working with ag commissioners on potential additional beta tests or other pilots throughout the state for 2024 before we launch the statewide system. The work that we've done up to this point in working with ag commissioners to conduct the pilots and this beta test in Tulare has been extraordinarily helpful. We've gotten a lot of really valuable feedback, both in terms of the functionality of the system, as well as how to clarify and communicate about information that's available, what additional information would be useful. As Ken and Leah and Sam noted, we're really seeing this as an opportunity also to provide education about the really strong regulatory system that California has in place to provide for the safe use of pesticides. So being able to have people test the system has been very helpful. And finally, we anticipate launching the statewide system once the regulation becomes final. And so with that, want to just thank you again for having us here today to share with you where we are on the system. We really appreciate all of the feedback that folks have provided to us so far. And again, look forward to public comments on the regulation. And also as we hopefully are able to do more testing throughout the year, would really look forward to feedback from all of you who can participate in any of those pilots. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I don't want to, I wonder if I could ask a clarification question, not something deep, but I live on the farm and I have an unverified address. How do you deal, how do you deal with unverified addresses in the program? Just curious. I don't know if you can answer that or not.
You know, I think I think so. Don, your question is if I'm a user of the system and I have an unverified address, how would I find out about applications happening near me? Sam, I think we've had that issue come up, so maybe I'll hand it over to you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Of course, and thank you, Don and Julie. So there is a current location function. If you've used that before, if say on a application to see gas stations near you, it does have a similar feature. So you can click that button and it would show the current location without an address. It would just serve as a long long and lat of that location rather than an address. And the addresses are currently provided by Bing. So if it is registered in Microsoft's Bing pretty much cert platform, then it's there. But if not, then the alternative is to use that current location function.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Well, like I say, I had a few other points, but I don't want to press my.
Yeah, Julie and DPR team, as I understand it, you can answer specific questions about what we've just seen as far as the demonstration, because there's a number of questions, and I think they're all good ones in the Q&A function.
Yes, happy to answer questions about the system design.
Perhaps you just want to read them, Josh, one at a time.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
If a grower reports that they intend to spray, but the product is not actually sprayed due to weather or other reasons, is the public notified of that?
No. So what the system, and Ken, did you want to take that? Okay. So what the system will do, and we also are providing this clarification as part of the system FAQ, but it will post notice information about intended applications, and there will be a caveat that it is possible that the application will not take place, but we won't have a way of following up and indicating that the application may not have occurred.
Thank you. Is the beta version of Spray Days currently online and available to the public?
So it is currently only available to participants in the Tulare County beta test. And so part of what we were hoping to do with this small test is to be able to have direct feedback from folks who are participating. Part of the discussion that we're having with some of the ag commissioners is potentially doing a broader pilot that would be more accessible to folks and not just limited to a small number of participants.
Why was the amount of acres to be treated included? It makes it fairly easy to determine exactly which fields are being treated within a section in many cases.
And can I have you?
Yeah. The purpose of that was to try to demonstrate that the size of the application is getting ready to occur. So as many of you guys know, larger fields take multiple days to get done. So the idea was there to give people an idea of just how big that application might be and how long it might take. So that's why we included that information.
Thank you, Ken. The sign-up allows you to enter 10 addresses. Does that mean a user enters an address that they want to see notifications for instead of the actual address of the user requesting the information?
I can take this one. So it does not have to be someone's, residence or something like that. The intention behind that is if someone, say, goes to a grocery store regularly, a church, a school, etc., that they can sign up for multiple areas that they want to receive notifications for.
Thank you. If I enter my address, how far distance from this location would I be notified of pending applications?
I can take this one also. So if a pin is in a 1 by 1 mile block, it's all of the surrounding blocks. So it'd essentially be at furthest up to 2 miles away. But basically the neighboring 1 mile block surrounding the 1 mile block that the location is in.
Perfect, thank you. Do you verify addresses of those requesting to be notified are justified, so only those potentially affected by the application are notified and not a greater audience?
I can take this one. No, we're not verifying addresses of users of the system. The purpose of this is really to provide transparent public access. And so, as Sam mentioned, in response to the other question, there could be various different addresses that folks have interest in understanding when applications are happening, whether it's around a school or a place of work or a residence. And so it's really designed to be able to provide public information.
Thank you, Director Henderson. The next question, how do you intend to defend or protect farmers from protesters, loss of revenue, or defamation of character for making scientifically safe and justified applications?
I'll take this one. So I think part of what we're trying to do with the system is to provide some background information on the regulatory system that we have in place in California that's designed to provide for the safe use of pesticides. And so the system itself does not change in any way. The authority or ability for anyone to use a pesticide according to current state laws and regulations. So it doesn't change the context of the ability to use pesticides as they are today. So it's providing more information to the public, but it's not changing anything about the ability of anyone to use pesticides. So the ability to use a restricted material pesticide in accordance with state law does not change. And so part of what we're trying to do with the system education is provide that context about the registration process that pesticides go through before they're allowed to be used, as well as information about our enforcement practices to ensure that pesticides are used safely and according to state law.
Thank you. And the last question we have is, how many addresses can I look up? Is it limited at all?
You want to take that one, Sam?
Yeah, it is unlimited. So this again is a public, the plan is to have this as a public website. So with that, it will be publicly available to search for an address or comb through the map as desired. The only limitation is the number of addresses that you can receive notifications for.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. And President Cameron, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Really, all of you for your input on the subject. I know, like I say, there's a lot of concern.
John, I just want to point out that Bryce has his hand up.
Bryce, I apologize.
Well, no trouble. Joy, I think you had your hand up as well, didn't you? Well, thank you very much for making this presentation. I sure appreciate the detail and answering the questions. California does have a robust system. It has, I think, been very helpful in especially in international sales as far as confidence that we have a full disclosure. Many states don't have really any disclosure and have opportunity for that level of confidence. So I appreciate the presentation. Certainly, change is always has a certain amount of anxiety and trepidation related to it. But the system that we have, I think, has been. I don't know maybe everything about what other countries do, but it's certainly a very valuable system of notice of intent, notice of application, and transparency for California citizens. So I hope that hope is not a strategy, but I hope that this new idea or system is again helpful to farmers and not problematic. For our farm, I have a lot of second cousins and third cousins, and the current system, every now and then somebody will contact us and say, hey, you use blah, blah, or blah, blah, because there's a Lundberg, and there might be my third cousin or just somebody that has that same name and would say, well, you've done some work there, but you haven't found really our farm. And when they come to us, it's helpful to declare that. They went right into kind of the public domain and started saying, well, we found an application that had a certain farm name or a certain, it could be very damaging or very, very harmful. But that system already exists for access to applications, and you can find names and things like that. So thank you so much for the presentation today. Hopefully I didn't cross any lines in engagement with you guys.
No, thank you. And maybe if I could just say, you know, we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to meet with you all, and we're, you know, really would appreciate ongoing feedback from you in terms of if you have further thoughts about the system or questions after today. We're really happy to continue this conversation and want the system to be able to provide information, but really importantly want agriculture to continue to thrive in California, and want this to just be supportive of being able to provide people with additional information and context, and hopefully reduce some of the kind of the unknown of what's happening across our state in terms of pesticide use and pest management. I think the other thing that I'll just say is I think it's a really good opportunity for us to explain why pest management is really important. I think, you know, people have a lot going on in their lives and don't often, you know, pause to think about why do we do pest management, but it's a really good opportunity for us to educate about that as well, and why it's so important, and why it's really important for growers to have tools to be able to manage pests and grow the abundant food that you all do across the state and feed us very well.
Mike, you had a question?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I had a question. Is there something similar to this related to herbicides?
So this is for all restricted material pesticides. So if an herbicide is on the if it's designated as a restricted material and requires a permit or notice of intent to be able to apply the pesticide, then it would be included.
Thank you. And the other question I had is related to wind drift and fog drift, which happens related to herbicides and pesticides. If somebody suspects that something came from further than 2 miles away, how would they find out that information?
You know, Mike, it's a really good question, and maybe I'll start, and Ken, maybe you can jump in. Part of what we've been, you know, conversations that we've been having with the agricultural commissioners is just sort of how we partner. Once the system is up and running, you know, obviously their really important function that they play is running the restricted material permitting system and carrying out local enforcement. And so I think questions about whether a pesticide has drifted would really first be directed to a county agricultural commissioner to address. But Ken, let me know if there's something else that you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, and you're right on, Julie. I mean, essentially, unless it's a restricted material herbicide, you know, the system will not display any information other than restricted materials. So if it's a different type of herbicide that does not require a permit or anything like that, the system will not demonstrate that or show that, and somebody will not be able to trace that back. So they would have to file a complaint with the commissioner to investigate at that point. So that's the only approach we really have at this point.
Okay, so that was my third question, which is related to ag commissioner. So if a farmer isn't sure, they could contact the local ag commissioner's office, and then they can help them with this system.
Yeah, absolutely. All enforcement activities or drift complaints and things of that nature would all be sent to the local ag commissioner to investigate.
Thank you.
You know, Josh, there are more questions in the chat. And one of them is from one of our board members, Patricia.
It's not germane, Don. I've already communicated with Patricia. It's off topic.
Gotcha. Yep, understood. Thank you. All right. Well, Director Henderson, I'd really like to thank you and your staff for being a part of our meeting today and really having the dialogue that I think helps explain the process a little better and answer some of the questions that I've been hearing as well. So we really appreciate the communication that you guys have really provided for us today, and look forward to working with you in the future. So thank you again.
Thanks very much, President Cameron. It's our pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
When is this program expected to go from beta and Tulare to statewide?
Yeah, so once the regulation that we've noticed that's in the process of the comment period becomes effective, so we anticipating that regulatory rulemaking action running through toward the end of the year. And so the system would go live once it's effective.
Thank you.
Joy, sorry.
I don't want to jump off if Joy had a question for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. I really appreciate that. This is have you anticipated any problems that you feel farmers will face because of this? What is your thinking led you to think, where are the pain points for farmers?
Well, I think big picture, the concern that we've heard is just not wanting operations to be interrupted. And so we've really tried to design the system as closely as possible to mirror the existing the restricted material permitting system. So as I think Ken mentioned, we have maintained the 24, 48 hour notice of intent time period, understanding that it's very sensitive. The decisions that are made around applying pesticides, particularly restricted materials, time periods are very sensitive so that you can effectively treat pests. And so we wanted to really make sure that we weren't interfering with the operation of agriculture, but at the same time could provide information to the public. And so really tried to maintain the integrity of that system. I think as someone mentioned earlier, change is always challenging, and coming up with a new system that's providing more information, it can be difficult. And so, what we're trying to do is anticipate questions that folks have and be able to provide that information on the Spray Days website. And as Leah mentioned, we're really planning for outreach and education before the system goes live so that we can share information both about the background regulatory system that's in place as well as what information is being provided. And also just to, really have an open door to all of you as you have concerns as the system goes live or in advance so that, we can be thinking about the concerns that you have and really trying to address them to the greatest degree that we can.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question. All right. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate it on a, what are we, at a Wednesday afternoon or evening now. So thank you again.
Okay.
Julie.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So,
All right, we're going to go ahead.
To note, it looked like there were some additional comments coming in from anonymous commenters. I don't know that we can capture these, but they primarily are all around the same issue that's already been expressed about concern about grower privacy, and that continues to be it, but people are very appreciative of the demonstration. And I really think it's important that we saw this demonstration, but to the extent that we're able to capture this so that if we have any ongoing correspondence with DPR, we'll be able to reflect that.
I agree with you. And I'm sure Josh has already taken that down.
Trying.
No, we appreciate the presentation, and Josh, I appreciate you taking copious notes on the questions that have already come up. So, all right. Well, as tradition always goes, we are 30 minutes beyond our timeline. Sorry, guys. I know it's getting on, but I feel this is extremely important. And so our next board discussion is statewide notification of ag use.
We do have public comment on this agenda.
At this point or at the end, Josh? Pardon me.
At this point.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. My apology.
Perfect. If you would like to make public comment on this agenda item, please use your hand icon and I will unmute your line. Please note that this is public comment, not a Q&A session. The first individual is Dave. Your line is now unmuted. Dave, you're self-muted. Dave, last time.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. A couple comments in regards to the restricted materials and notification that the farmer has to use. Is the general public homeowner be able to use the same material or the material that has the same active ingredient and spray that at their home without notification to their neighbors?
Thank you, Dave.
We
Again,
really,
public
we'll
comment.
write, yeah, we'll keep the comment and appreciate that. Next up, Josh.
Michael Miller, your line is unmuted.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you, Chair, board members, for the presentation. It's very, very.
Michael?
Did we lose him?
Michael, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, somehow, apologize again. Anyway, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful. And I just wanted to say that for the California Association of Wine Grape Growers, we're in no way opposed to public notification that actually notifies people nearby about what we're doing. We want to be transparent, compliant, and we think we're using very safe products, and we appreciate DPR's efforts and all of that. The concern we have is a big picture of that the potential for the system that they discussed today at DPR actually allows for a lot of misinformation. When a grower notifies that they intend to spray and then they can't spray due to weather conditions, due to whatever, that notification will happen again the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's going to appear as though the grower is spraying several days in a row when actually that's not happening. And when you have that kind of misinformation from a public agency to the public, and it's not just to the neighbors, it's any, nationwide and globally, anybody who wants to go on the website and look it up, you have the potential for a lot of bad policies coming out of bad information. And there's an old saying that bad facts make bad law. And this potential system has the ability to create a lot of bad facts because it just may not be accurate. But that's our big picture concern, and we look forward to working with DPR on that. Again, I thank the board for the presentation today. It was very, very helpful.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you, Michael. Next up, Josh.
Taylor Rochon.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, and Secretary Ross. Taylor Rochon with Consories in Conway, representing a host of agricultural associations. First and foremost, thank you to DPR, both Director Henderson and staff, for presenting, and to the board and CDFA for hosting the webinar. We believe that having safe and accessible opportunities for farmers to provide input is really critical, and the board definitely serves as that conduit along with CDFA. While we will be submitting formal written public comments to DPR, we wanted to offer a few top thoughts for the board and CDFA to consider. We think it's important to just level set, as it was mentioned by board member Lumberg today. California has the most advanced pesticide health and safety protocols. A unique feature of the agricultural community is the role of licensed PCAs and applicators to use product safely and only when absolutely necessary. And the vast majority of illnesses and injuries that are reported in California are not from agricultural use. So as we contemplate this project, we'd like to acknowledge the really high baseline that California agriculture exists in. We also encourage that a notification system protect the grower and applicator anonymity, which was noted in some of the comments, at least in the Q&A. This information is irrelevant to a right to know system, as the director noted, or a transparent system, as the director noted. But more importantly, it can serve as to present legitimate threats to employees and employee safety, food safety, and or halt important critical pest management activity in the field, which threatens plant health, food access, which is a significant social justice issue, and general pest prevention. I think the top of the board meeting discussion about the advent of fruit fly and other invasive pests and diseases is, though it's not any relation to a dereliction of service, is a limited example of what could happen with untended pest risks across multiple platforms in California. To that extent, we also appreciate the department leaving the NOI submission interval similar so it doesn't disrupt existing processes in the regulation. And then we appreciate DPR using the notification system as an opportunity to educate the public about the good work that they do, ag commissioners, and what agriculture does to keep California and our environment safe. So to that extent, we would recommend that functionally that information should be placed on the landing page of the Spray Days website, and that notification should only incorporate really relevant and important information that satisfies a public right to know. So that would only include namely the product information, not necessarily the size of the application taking place. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Taylor.
Jacob D., your line is unmuted.
Hi, Jacob DeFont with Agricultural Council of California. Thank you, President, board members, and Secretary Ross. We're grateful for DPR providing us with a demonstration of the notification system, but we do still have many concerns as it stands. We just want to also express that we do want to be transparent and maintain compliance to keep that California commodity quality as previously discussed, and also trust in our products. And we want to echo some previous comments made about misuse of this notification system, potentially leading to misinformation or misuse by users using it without verifying geographic location from outside of the state, potentially. And we also want to echo previous comments as it relates to this level of granular geographic information that's being provided that's kind of different than what's previously existed, potentially impacting worker safety, property security, as well as supply chains. And we thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Roger, your line is unmuted. Roger Isom.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And thank you guys for putting this on. We really appreciate it. I think that it was good for DPR to make that presentation. They did not do that during the public workshops that they just recently held. And I want to agree with only one thing that DPR said, and that is that the public does not understand. And I think by the method that DPR is rolling this out, it's leading to hysteria. They need to do a better job explaining this process and explaining the process of how they register a pesticide. If you were to attend those recent workshops, we were accused of everything from causing asthma and valley fever to fading clothes, and to the reason that all the fallow land in Fresno County was because they were contaminated with pesticides. And that is just unacceptable to not explain. None of that is true. And that there's a very robust, very lengthy process by which pesticides are registered and in a safe manner. And so DPR did not once say today, in my opinion, that the application of pesticides is safe and doesn't cause the concern. And so rather people are thinking that there is a concern. And so what I fear, and I think a lot of us fear, is that there are going to be appealing of pesticide applications like what's happened in Monterey County is going to be expanded, and they're going to severely impact our operations. So I have very big concerns. I wish they would do a much better job explaining the process and whether there really is a need for this system. At the very least, it needs to be only limited to those that are truly impacted and not have anybody and everybody sign up to it. I think again, the example to Monterey County where more than 60% of the people signed up don't even live in the state really shows what this is all about. I have no issue if it's impacting those immediately around my farm or operation. I think that's understandable, but this open-ended system is not acceptable if DPR believes in their own registration process. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present those comments. And I hope the DPR takes these comments and rethinks this proposal.
Thank you, Roger.
Renee, your line is unmuted. Renee B.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Renee.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Renee Pinnell with Western Plant Health. As has already been mentioned, we think it's important to repeat the fact that California has the world's strongest evaluation system and processes in place. I also think it's important for us to note that the evaluation system is not simply a backwards looking system that relies on what has been done in the past. It's also the most progressive system in the world, in that as part of the SPM roadmap, DPR is already considering, when they're looking at new products in the queue and doing reevaluations, the impact that pesticides can have on surrounding communities. So it is an extraordinarily comprehensive system that is not tied to strictly what's happening in a field that's being applicated, but also goes beyond those fence posts. We recognize, however, that despite this, some community members believe it is important that they be notified in advance when a restricted material is applied within a range that could affect them. But we believe in providing a notification that informs community members and limits alarming them. We believe the following should be considered. This should be a sign-up system, as DPR is currently setting the program up, and not a general notification to communities. Again, if someone gets a notification where they have not been backgrounded on what they're receiving, that's simply going to cause alarm and not inform. Notification of individuals should be limited to within that 1 mile grid zone, so that practical and accurate information that actually impacts those individuals is received. A notification should be limited to restricted materials as currently planned, so that a practical, cost-efficient system can be developed. I have been at some of the hearings, and I have repeatedly heard demands that part of the notification should include the personal or business address of the farmers, the PCAs, and the applicators. This is a notification system of a product application, so that's irrelevant. And so we want to emphasize that the information that's provided to the ag commissioners through their mapping system should be appropriate for the notification system. Again, the information needs to be easily understandable, factual information about the safety and risk of pesticides. This should be a part of the link to the notification, so that individuals in a time-effective basis can look at the regulatory system and the safety system, and they're not left searching after the fact.
Renee, I'm going to have to cut you off here. We're trying
that's
to
fine.
get as many people in as we can, and it's getting late. So I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Ian, your line is unmuted.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I'd like to thank the board and Secretary Ross for the opportunity to give public comment. I am one of the beta testers within the system, And as I brought up in the Q&A question, unfortunately, the acreage portion of the notification makes it very easy to identify exactly which field is being treated. And it's concerning that DPR has still not addressed a way to track who is accessing the data. If a person was going to make a Freedom of Information Act request or go into the county ag commissioner's office to pull the NOI data, they would have to leave contact information. This system, as it sits, unfortunately could be used by bad actors. It's too easy for them to get notifications and then go ahead. They can call in complaints saying, hey, I got drifted on. And it's just a system, unfortunately, that is rife for abuse. I've talked to many producers, including people that had no idea that their farms were being notified or that their farm data was being put out there. And you know, they're fine with notifying neighbors, you know, so they can close their windows, so they can not be present when applications are occurring. But again, to open up this data to the public at large and then not track who is accessing it is concerning. And furthermore, I'm also concerned that our local county ag commissioners offices may get overwhelmed with inaccurate reports that then they will have to go and investigate, and it isn't going to be the best use of their time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Noelle, your line is unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening. Noelle Kramers with Wine Institute. And first, I want to express my appreciation for hosting this meeting. It was very helpful to hear DPR's presentation and the specifics about their plans. I share many of the thoughts that have already been shared. I mean, we absolutely support transparency and appreciate developing a system that allows the neighbors to be notified, and would like to see a system put in place where you request notification for your specific property rather than having it be made public, particularly for the reasons that Mr. Miller presented earlier, with if you have to notify 24 hours or 48 hours in advance, and then the weather changes and you don't actually make the application, and you then notify multiple times. If that information is just shared publicly, there's a lot of opportunities for that information to be shared in a manner that's inaccurate, and that there's misinformation out there because it looks like much more significant product has been applied than actually gets applied. So we would recommend that DPR ultimately create a system that allows for information to go directly to the neighbors that are interested in having access to that, rather than completely posted publicly for anyone, both within the state or out of the state, to access. But again, thank you very much for inviting DPR this evening to provide that information and give us a chance to share our thoughts.
Thank you, Noelle.
Chris Reardon, your line is unmuted.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Nice to see you again, Madam Secretary, and we appreciate the department's presentation this evening. I thought what I would say is sometimes there's a misconception about the restricted use material system in California. I think I mentioned in my question earlier that, look, today, as we sit here today, public access is already available through our local ag commissioner's office. California ag commissioners manage this system at the local level and work cooperatively with both not only the growers, but impacted neighbors and communities. There is constant communication between those three target areas I just mentioned. And by the way, there's literally hundreds and maybe thousands of applications that take place in this state on a regular basis that local community members or neighbors are identified before or when an NOI goes out. So there's a lot of communication that occurs. It happens all over this state on a regular basis. And I think that's important to note as we look at this process. I think staff said one thing very interesting too, and I agree with them. I've always believed as it relates to notification, that there just needs to be a greater ability for the department and the ag commissioners to adequately educate those that are going to be impacted, not only the growers, but neighbors, et cetera, stakeholders have an interest in this issue. I don't think you need to reinvent the system here. The system works. As my good friends at USCPA said in 2014 about the California regulatory restricted use permitting system, we are the gold standard, not only this country, but the world. So look, I think it works. I think, as I said, I think we're gonna have to tweak the way we educate folks, but I'm not sure you need this existing system to do that. And just lastly, what concerns us most, as you might imagine, has been mentioned before, is what if? What if there's a lot of communities around the state that might be able to find those locations, okay? And what happens if, Lord help all of us, if someone is hurt or regarding an application, or someone gets in the way, or something happens as a result of this notification process. So that's what concerns us most. It's the what ifs, what happens, that we can't plan for. And of course, we don't want people to be hurt as well, including the farmers, growers in the state. So thank you. That's my remarks.
Thank you, Chris.
Adam, your line is unmuted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, I just want to thank the State Food and Ag Board for hosting this important meeting on a very important topic for the agricultural community. And I also appreciate Director Henderson and the DPR staff for providing the demonstration presentation today. I'm largely just going to echo the comments that have already been provided by other commenters and like to emphasize the need to protect grower and applicator anonymity and site-specific information. That information is not germane to the application itself and is not relevant and could invite trespass and harassment of property and business owners, as well as the agricultural employees that are at work in the field or orchard or vineyard. And it's also necessary to protect farmers' right to privacy. And lastly, I'd like to make sure that it was great to see that DPR has added information on the beta site for educating the public on the product registration process, but continue emphasis on correctly educating the public at large on product registrations is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
And our last speaker, Norm, you're up.
Good evening, Norm Groot, Monterey County Farm Bureau, and I'm going to echo a lot of the thank yous that everyone's already made, and Happy New Year to our secretary there. Again, we remain concerned about the use of this process without some sort of address verification or registration verification of those using the system for notifications. I think that's critically important in light of what happened here in Monterey County with our system that we used several years ago. And as Roger noted in his comments earlier, it was not intended to be used by those who are not in our county. I think the unintended consequence here too is going to be the impact on our local ag commissioners' budgets each year, as they had to do all these impending investigations and the necessary work to justify legal applications of these chemicals. So I think we need to look at the process of what's going to happen locally here in our ag commissioners' offices. I do agree that the acreage as a location, I think, will be able to be readily identified in that 1 square mile box that they showed in the demonstration. And I have lots of concerns about that because we have ranch maps here that readily can identify those size acreages pretty quick. So I think we need to make sure that it's as anonymous as possible. And finally, one of the items that was brought to my attention recently is that we are a right to farm county here. We have a strong right to farm ordinance, and any delay in an application may cause some conflicts with right to farm. So thank you for putting on this meeting at the last minute. We appreciate it very much and allowing us to make comments today.
Thank you, Norm.
And we have one last speaker before we shut off public comment on this item. Mark, your line is unmuted. Mark?
Can you get me now?
Yes.
I just want to make the comment. I just have a lot of concern. And by the way, I'm Mark McKean, a farmer from the Western Fresno County, and I do also appreciate you guys having this seminar. But I just want to express real concern for my own safety and as well as my workers' safety. I'm thinking that some people may not use this as you are portraying it's going to be used there by CDFA and DPR. I think some may use this as a tool to stop applications, and it concerns me that they're going to be wandering around in the countryside here that they don't really know where they're going. And then my workers who are trained to do this, they have to immediately stop, and that's what they're going to want to happen. And so every time these people drive by, my workers have got to stop, and we'll have to stop for the rest of the day, as a matter of fact. Severe disruptions for what would be normal practices and safe practices that have been proven for safe for a long time. So I just got to express a lot of concern here, and DPR and others are going to show them the roadmap of where to go. And this is a real problem as I see it. I'll close with that.
And that concludes our public comment, Mr. President.
All right. I appreciate all the comments from all the participants today, and definitely the presentation from DPR today. That was extremely informative. So we will move down to our next for discussion, which is based on the statewide notification of ag use of restricted materials. I know that our agenda did include a staff draft letter for potential action, and I've requested that this be held for further discussion with the board. Given the public comment deadline of January 12th, the board may consider the opportunity to have the board president, myself, in collaboration with staff, submit a letter on behalf of the board prior to that date. So I'd like to go ahead and open discussion on that. Bryce, you are muted.
Would you like a motion and then have discussion on that, or would like to discuss it prior to motion?
I think it'd probably be good to have the motion.
I would move that the board authorize the president to work in cooperation with staff to develop a letter in position for the board.
Second.
All right. Let's open it for discussion. Thank you both. Joy?
Yeah, I think there are we open now to discussing what we think should be in the letter, or just to express that I think it's a brilliant idea that we submit a letter?
Well, we've heard plenty of public comment today, and
if I could, I think Julie indicated she would welcome ongoing conversation with CDFA and the state board about this, whatever form that takes. Agencies do this kind of back and forth oftentimes as we try to chart a pathway forward. So I just want to make that clear that I think the invitation was open for ongoing communication about this. And just want to remind you that Director Henderson is open to that ongoing. And one of the things I think we can do is synthesize all the comments we've had. DPR left the meeting because of their issues of their comment period. And at a minimum, I believe it would be important to synthesize the really thoughtful comments that we heard today, especially those that have very consistent expression of concern or I think the more specific we can be on some of the suggestions, the more helpful it is to the agency that's trying to craft whatever comes out of their process.
Thank you, Secretary.
And Michelle has.
Yep, Michelle, you have your hand up.
I do, thanks. I'm certainly open to a letter. I'm curious as the process. I know the deadline is coming up soon, and so how does that get kind of vetted, within a short turnaround? And I appreciate the comments that we heard. I imagine there are a lot more out there too, from an even broader and more diverse group of folks. And so I just, that's also in the back of my mind. And, alongside, I think, what the Secretary is saying about open lines of communications with DPR. And so it just, so I guess my just thoughts are on process and how do we, provide our thoughts in a way that is, that we're able to turn around in time, but also take into account maybe some of the other comments that may be out there, and alongside the invitation for a continued dialogue.
And Michelle, I think most appropriate is to reflect back a summary of the comments that we got at this particular meeting. It is a public meeting, but for us to be able to synthesize those comments to share with DPR because they left the meeting, I think is the most valid way with such short turnaround time.
Okay, thank you. That sounds reasonable.
Do we have any other discussion on this item before we move forward? Nope. Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If
I can actually, I'm sorry if we could take a roll call. Since this is a
Yeah,
conference.
that'd be good.
Don Cameron,
Aye.
Janae DaCosta,
Aye.
Mike Gallo. Mike Gallo,
Mike, you're muted. There you go.
Aye. Aye.
Bryce Lumber,
Aye.
David Mansara,
Aye.
Michelle Passaro,
Aye.
Joyce Sterling,
Aye.
Patricia Stock, Patricia Stock.
Oh, she just texted me yes, but I don't know.
Yes, we could, yes.
Thank you, Patricia.
Correct. Yes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate that. I think staff will help put the letter together. We'll review it with the Secretary and Josh and myself and move forward prior to the comment end of the comment period.
Will the roll call be referenced in the minutes or will just the result?
You're quizzing me. The results will be published in the minutes.
Thank you. I guess I was thinking I would probably follow Glenda, but Glenda, were you able to vote?
Bryce, she's not at her published
gotcha.
location because of her foot injury.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Thanks.
He keeps track of this stuff. I'm impressed.
Well, I was just expecting to follow Glenda, and I like following Glenda. Okay.
Thank you for thinking of me, Bryce. I appreciate it.
Glenda, I was thinking of you. I just didn't want to put you on the spot.
All right, we'll move on to our last item before public comment. It's an opportunity for the board to suggest agenda items for our next meeting, February 13th in Tulare, by submitting items for potential inclusion on the agenda. They'll be allowing the board to take action on such items in compliance with Bagley-Keene. Our February 13th meeting will focus on specialty crop competitiveness and include invited participation by the USDA. So the floor is open.
Cool. And just to echo Don, again, this is an opportunity for the board members to include items on the agenda so the board can take action. Just
Right.
as the issue was something that the board was interested in taking action on, but was not on our agenda last month, we could not, and that's why this meeting came forward.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that, Josh. Anything from the board?
I do actually, Patricia seems to be an attendee again. Let me move her. Patricia, your line is unmuted.
Patricia?
Yes, I can. Oh, I can. Yes, thank you. I can speak now.
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't have visuals, but that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, nothing from the board at this time? All right. Josh, we have our last public comment.
Yes, sir. If you'd like to make public comment on items not on the agenda, please use your hand icon and I can unmute your line. Again, this is for items not on the agenda. Craig, your line is unmuted.
Craig, go ahead.
Craig, can you hear us? Craig, your line is unmuted.
Craig, can you hear us at all? Well, he may have stepped away, Josh.
Okay, we have no further public comment? Actually, Bryce has his hand.
Bryce, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for this meeting, Dawn, and thank everyone who made comments today. About how valuable that was to hear so many comments specifically on this proposed regulation or change in the notice of intent and application. I especially want to thank Ian for participating and giving a firsthand kind of feedback on how it was working for him. And anyway, just thank you for everyone who attended and gave us feedback. Sure appreciate that.
No, Bryce, I couldn't agree more. You know, having a meeting beginning at 4 o'clock is challenging sometimes. And believe me, I appreciate the board's participation in this. I know we typically don't have a January meeting. So getting everybody together on the 3rd is exceptional. And I think it shows the determination and the will of our board to deal with some of these items that we're hearing in the ag community. So, and yeah, I agree with you. I appreciate everybody that got on, gave public comments today, and really will help decide the future. And so I guess we don't have anything else. Secretary, do you have any last comments?
No, I just want to express my appreciation to everyone who attended today, to everyone who made comments, and to you, the board members. It was very constructive. And so I think our friends from DPR will also appreciate, getting this input. I'm sure some of it will be echoed. And as Michelle pointed out, there are many perspectives, many perspectives, and there have been very robust public meetings on this already. So I'm sure DPR has their work cut out for them. But we'll try to be as helpful as possible to make this something that works for everyone.
I agree with you, Secretary. So at this time, we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and definitely appreciate everybody attending today. And going to 5:41, that's exceptional. So thank you for your time. We know it's precious, so go support the wine industry.
All right, thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.